Hey people, welcome to our first first of many lecture videos that you'll see from me. And going forward, the lecture videos will be a combination of things like this, or PowerPoints that I'll either be in or narrating, and then I create videos using another program, which is just images and narration. That program doesn't allow you to put videos in there at all. So sometimes I will be at the bottom of every screen, and sometimes it'll just be my voice. Okay. All right. So let's dive into chapter 1 about design. And what we're going to talk about, I always have notes over to the side. What we're going to be talking about for this part of the lecture is we'll be looking at the creative design process and the development of design theory. And as we move through the course, that will go into the developing of your aesthetic. So we'll be looking at the principles of design and design theory. So we'll be looking at things like, line and composition and, form and shape and space. But we'll be looking at those in relation. There's more that we'll be looking at than that, right? But we'll be looking at those in relation to how you will develop, how you will put those into the things that you love and how you draw inspiration from things out in the world. So that's what we'll be talking about in this chapter. We'll be talking about structural designs. We'll be talking about, draping and deconstruction and architecture. We'll be talking about the functions of a garment. So we'll be talking about some of those in broader terms, and then as the semester progresses, we'll dive deeper into those. But really, we'll talk about design as a form of communication for fashion, right? And how these components build upon each other to create something different and unique, even though we think nothing different and unique can be created anymore, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about in this chapter, okay? So just to start, we're going to move on to some of the objectives again. So we'll talk about the elements of design. We'll talk about the principles, stages in the design thinking process, because there are steps that you go to. Judging the success of fashion design, and that can be different. It's design, fashion is it's personal, and it, what one person thinks is awesome, amazing, somebody else doesn't. So we'll just talk about the success. And success isn't always commercial success. It doesn't always translate into actual dollars and cents. And then we'll go through some common, fashion industry terminology, just because we absolutely have to. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this first part of the lecture. The other thing, I should have said this in the first slide, but I break these up into bite-sized chunks. So these videos will never be longer than 15 minutes. I usually make them between 10 and 15 for a reason. I actually set a timer on myself so I don't go over 15. Because like I said, I want you to digest things in bite-sized chunks. Now, the lectures that I find out in the world, sometimes they're a little bit longer. In this lecture, there's some 20+ minute videos that are in there as well. But I really try to make things so that you can, work on it for 15, 20, between 15 and 30 minutes and do something else if that's what you like, or you can just plow through, 3 hours worth of lecture material at one shot. I actually don't recommend that. It's not the best way to learn. So, okay. So moving on to our next slide and what we're going to talk about. So fashion, right? Fashion is a visual product, and you as a fashion creative, whether you're on the design side or on the merchandising side, we are creative people. We are visual people, and there's a lot that goes into the creation of some of these visual images. So if we go back, if we just go back to to our first slide here, there's a lot happening in this video, right? We see art and beauty in this image. We see detail. We see elegance, but we also can see some simplicity. We see beauty, and for some people, they may not see those things. They may see this as ostentatious and over the top and privileged, and they may not relate to it. So those are some of the things that fashion does. And fashion is, it really is, it's a visual product, right? So this chapter is really going to talk about design in, hopefully in a different way than you typically think about design. So make sure, hopefully you've read the chapter. I'm not going to regurgitate everything that's in the book, but I'm going to add and build. I'm going to pull out some key points, the things that you absolutely need to know. You need to know it all, right? But I'm going to reiterate the key points that I think that will help. And like I said, this class, each lecture builds on the other, right? So we can't talk about the pieces of the design process unless we understand what design is, the design process, and some of those structural pieces. Okay, so what is design, right? Design, it refers to both, not just the product, but also the product, right? And the goal for you as a fashion professional, right, again, whether you're on the design side or the merchandising side, is to be able to explain the process that you got to get to that product, right? So the product itself, it's that visual piece, it's the thing, right? But explaining the inspiration and the steps that it took you to get to why, why this, this Adidas top that I have on, why is it pineapples, graphic pineapples on a red background, but also in a blue background. And then on the back, there's yellow, right? Why this process, right? And why, when you put those pieces together, is it appealing, right? So why was it created, and what's the purpose of the finished visual product, right? So, I love, I probably have too many. I don't say I collect, but I love Adidas graphic, specialty products, right? So I love their stuff by Stella McCartney. And I have quite a few of these graphic sweatshirts, or the whole fit. Does not actually have the pants too. But I love that because it's unexpected art in athleisure, right? It's an unexpected expression of, kind of the kitschiness in my personality and the fun. If you see somebody walking around with a pineapple sweatshirt on, they don't take themselves too serious. To say it that way, but you hope they don't take themselves too serious, right? So the outward expression, right? So, in design, whether we're talking about fashion or art or nature, when I say nature, I mean landscape design or architecture, there is an idea that form follows function, right? So when you go through all these steps in the process, you come out with a functional product. And that's, it actually is a concept that's more related to architecture, and it's credited to an American architect. But like with many artistic movements, what happens in one area of art or design or creativity then gets translated to other areas, right? So that form follows function has moved into fashion, into graphic design, into art, into architecture, into interior design. All of those things are really, really important. So, fashion really is the creation of, the creation of things that make us happy, right? And the design process, by understanding the design process and understanding your aesthetic, you can make things that make people happy and make yourself happy, number one, hopefully make other people happy as well. Okay. So some of the other things that the textbook dives into, I'm not going to go into all of them with the slide, but it explains the stages of the design process. It describes the criteria for judging the success of a garment. So how aesthetically pleasing is it, the construction of it, and then how functional it is, right? So some of the things that we also are going to look at throughout the semester, we'll be looking at fashion and the fashion industry, and we'll look at, common terms like silhouette. So underneath this video, there is a chart of all the different silhouettes. I've used that in a couple of my other classes. So if you've taken fashion history or textiles, we talk about silhouette and fabric and color and looks and details. So we'll be looking at a lot of fashion images throughout this course as well. Okay, so I said between 10 and 15 minutes. I'm going to end this section of the lecture right here, and then you're going to pick up in just a second. And in the next section of the lecture, the next piece, I'll give you a previous slide. The next section of the lecture, we are going to be talking about the design process. Okay, so you're done with this part, and next we're going to move into the design process.